Hi everyone, my name is Andrea Deveau. I am the Head of Partnerships and Communications for Astrid, a UK charity helping people living with long-term health issues find meaningful employment. About our topic today, there are an estimated 260,000 people living with chronic fatigue syndrome or myalgic encephalomyelitis in the UK alone. Many living with the illness will have to find ways to adapt, including when it comes to their work. The aim for this webinar is to help you uncover ways to manage the illness and perhaps find meaningful employment when you're ready for that. Before I go on to my guest, quick reminder that there is a Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to send us your questions and we'll do our best to answer them. Now, here's who I have with me today. We have Pippa Stacey, who is a fantastic trailblazer, and we're so lucky to have her on board. We have Amanda Jeffs, who is our go-to person for communities, and we're still waiting for Patricia Clark, whose energy has shown in our work with our candidates beyond what I can possibly explain to you right now. So I'll start with Pippa. Pippa, tell us about your illness and your experience, the illness and your experience with it, please.
Absolutely. So I first started experiencing the symptoms of ME when I was around 14 years old. And like many people, I had no idea that that was what was going on at the time. My symptoms were very mild, wasn't getting very far with doctor's visits. And as my health slowly declined, things got worse and worse. And it wasn't until 4 years later that I was finally diagnosed with ME. And because life was never straightforward at the time, I was in my first year of university. My health massively declined. I became a wheelchair user. I finally got the diagnosis. And obviously, that was not a fun time. ME is not a fun thing to live with, as we all know. But one of the big positives that came out of it was that I started a blog called Life of Pippa, and I grew a community on social media, talking about some of the things I'd experienced and some of the issues that I felt weren't being talked about in relation to chronic illness. And that has eventually led me onto a freelance writing career and also working in communications consultancy. And that's how I came to be here at Astrid and to be here today, I suppose.
Thank you so much, Pippa, for joining. Amanda Jeffs, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I was diagnosed with ME initially, actually, when I was 18. I was unwell for a few years, and then I seemingly recovered and went on to live a kind of normal, active life, working and traveling. And then in 2015, I fell ill with what I thought was a virus, and I just didn't recover. It gradually spiraled and got worse. And eventually I had to stop work, which was really hard. I've been a nanny for 20 plus years, and I was then diagnosed with ME and 4 other chronic illnesses. And I've been learning to live with my new normal since then, managing with the symptoms and appointments and treatments and everything else that comes along with having chronic illness. And I just started to volunteer with Astrid, which has been really rewarding so far.
We are very lucky to have you. Thank you for joining us today, Amanda. I think we have Trish Clark with us. Not sure whether we're having some technical difficulties. Trish, can you hear us?
I can hear you, but my video won't launch for some reason. Hi, I'm Trish. I live in Halifax, and I was diagnosed with ME in December, although I do think that I've had it for much longer than that. My doctor kind of sent me back to work after having many tests and finding nothing, and then only to find that the symptoms came back again. So in December I stopped working as a primary school teacher and got in touch with Astrid. My mum heard about Astrid on BBC radio, and Steve and Victoria were chatting, and mum rang me and she said, "You must get in touch with these people." So I did, and with Steve's help and his somehow teasing out those skills that you don't think that you have got, because it's just like, what am I going to do if I'm not a teacher? I wound up volunteering with Astrid and helping others, and I'm the kind of living, breathing person that's like shows that Astrid can really help.
Thank you so much, Trish. It's wonderful to have you. And as I said before, thank you everyone for sharing your stories. It's very inspirational to have you and to potentially make a difference in other people's lives if we can, and that is the aim for today. Before I go into our questions, another reminder that we have a Q&A section at the bottom. Please feel free to shoot over your questions and we'll do our best to answer them. So I'll circle back to Pippa now. Pippa, what motivated you to take the steps towards work, and what did those steps look like for you?
So for me personally, as somebody whose illness got a lot worse during university, I found myself in this really weird in-between stage. So with, obviously we know with ME the severity can range so much, and I kind of found myself in this in-betweener grey area. So on the one hand, I knew that I was capable of work in some capacity, but I knew that I couldn't work in what people consider the traditional pattern of working. So full-time hours, 9 till 5, commuting to an office. I knew that that wasn't feasible for me. So it was very much a case of trying to find something that, one, matched my skills and experience, and two, was accessible and manageable for me with my condition. So it took a lot of trial and error, let's just say that. I did a few years in the charity sector before becoming self-employed, and I found something that was very telling. I found was that even schemes designed for disabled graduates often weren't understanding of my ME. So I was actually excluded from schemes designed to be inclusive because I wasn't capable of working full-time hours. So there are so many barriers at every level of the process, and I'm sure that many people watching this will know that too. In my case, it was just, I just had to keep persevering, just making contacts, making connections, and among my writing and blogging now, I met the lovely people at Astrid, and that led me to where I am now.
Thank you for sharing that, Pippa. You're actually quite an inspiration to a lot of young people. Actually, one of our attendees today was very excited about joining and seeing you particularly. I was very moved by that. I mean, anybody that knows you within our team knows that you are all of that and more. So thank you. Amanda, same question for you. You've joined Astrid quite recently. What motivated you to take the steps towards work, and what did those steps look like for you?
Yeah, so I, as you said really early on in my kind of move forward towards some kind of work, I actually wasn't thinking about volunteering or working when I called Astrid. I called thinking that maybe I could get some advice or some tips on things I may be able to do in the future, because I've had such an active job. I knew that I couldn't go back to that, so I didn't really have any idea of what I could do working from home with the skills that I've got from being a nanny. So I just literally thought I'd call Astrid and see if I could get some advice. And I initially spoke to Steve, who put me in touch with a volunteer. And then it was during that call that she suggested and asked how I thought about volunteering for Astrid. And I was a little bit apprehensive, but also felt really excited about the opportunity. I felt a bit like I didn't have any idea how it was going to work, but I knew I wanted to try and give it a go. So I'll be helping with moderating the feedback within the new community, and it's really nice to be part of that, and hopefully some of the things that I've learned along the way will help others in their journey on to whatever they need. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Amanda. I'm going to move on to Trish now. Trish, were you able to find transferable skills from your previous jobs, and how did you go through that process?
I really wasn't sure that I was going to be able to transfer my skills, because once I was diagnosed with ME, I had the the moment of what am I going to do if I don't teach, and I was stuck in a bit of a box really, and I've been working with primary schools for 20 years. It was all I ever knew. But once I'd been in touch with Steve, he was really good at chatting and listening to me, and I think he soon realised that I was quite happy to talk to most people, and listening, and that's what you do as a teacher, and having that knowledge of suffering with ME myself. That whole thing of sharing my knowledge and sharing is a skill that you use as a teacher all the time when you with children, and the role that I have with speaking to new candidates is so good, so that it's a kind of a mentoring and a listening and understanding role, and even things like the assessment of the candidates and the me passing on of notes. I'm always reminded when I'm being writing reports for lots of different children and trying to make sure that I make all the notes that are individual and clear, so that everybody is, you know, understands what they're going through, and just using all those skills of being inclusive with everyone. So there were so many, so I can still kind of use all those skills that I've used for these number of years and still get a buzz from it. So I'm not left thinking, well, that was a waste of time, because it isn't. I've been able to use them all. It's really quite amazing, actually. Yeah.
Well, we've definitely seen the benefits of you using your previous skills in your work with Astrid, so thank you for that. I'm going to go back to Amanda. Amanda, did you come across any obstacles or concerns, and how were you able to overcome them?
So I think the big obstacles for me have been to do with my energy levels and my confidence. So my confidence took a real deep dive when I lost my ability to do my job, and the illness caused me to lose part of my independence, and my ability to function in the world just completely changed, and that's been difficult to adjust to and accept. And I'm still very new to volunteering, but Astrid is allowing me to be part of something new and different, and it's helping me to gain back some of that confidence, and it's also been helping me to look at my pacing and be a bit more disciplined, so learning what my limits are when I have things I need to do, and asking for support when I need it, but due to the nature and the ethos of Astrid and the people here, I feel really comfortable knowing that they understand my energy and my illness fluctuations, which also helps hugely. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Amanda. Trish, same question. Did you come across any obstacles or concerns, and how were you able to overcome them?
Yeah, the biggest obstacle was that sense of loss, that kind of grief that I had, that I'd worked for forever in schools, and I'd worked really hard to get to doing that. I spent a lot of time and energy, and because I suffer with ADHD as well, which kind of makes it really tricky for me to balance the two, because my head is, I'm a really busy person, and I've always been charging around and getting things done, and so when I got this, it was it was not just the loss of the job, it was the loss of, gosh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with my children? What am I going to do? But it probably did me, in a way, it probably did me good that I could kind of stop and take stock of what I can and can't do, so that I could pace myself, and the people that are around me, and with the support that I got from Astrid, I've been able to continue doing something that I enjoy now, with using those skills, so that nothing's gone to waste, but I'm using my time much more wisely now, and so I can spend that time with my family and friends, and I think there is an element of, yeah, I still probably do too much when I shouldn't, but I've always been a crash and burn person, and I won't be told when somebody says no, you need to stop, and I'm just like, no, but I want to do this, and I will suffer, but I'm aware of that now, and I'm prepared for it, and I know I don't do half as much as I used to do, but I'm still enjoying life, particularly being able to do the role that I can still use all my skills that I've worked hard for. So yeah, that it was a really, really big obstacle, was getting over the what do I do now? But I'm glad to be here where I'm doing it. It's good.
Well, I have a follow-up question from one of our attendees. Danu is saying, does anyone have any tips on rebuilding confidence towards taking the leap into freelance roles?
I can probably take that one.
Please do.
It's yeah, I can completely empathize with that. It's like stepping into the unknown, and especially with a condition like ME, like being able to kind of hustle and put yourself out there and make the contacts can feel so much more difficult. So I would say my best advice is really like refining what your specific skill is, whether that's writing, graphic design, whatever you do that's freelance. If you really refine that skill and build up a portfolio at your own pace, having that there as the standard of your work is something that you can then fall back upon when you're pursuing new opportunities in the future. So even if you can't hustle as much as you want to, knowing that you have a strong portfolio and just taking the time to develop those skills and just make sure that the foundation you're working on is as solid as possible. It doesn't remove all of the issues, and yes, there are definitely challenges along the way, but I think that would be my best advice.
Thank you, Pippa. And since we have you, my next question is for you. What skills from your illness management help in your new working life?
I think this is a really good question, because something that I've realised a lot in my experience is that people automatically assume that chronically ill people are less capable in the workplace than non-chronically ill people. And although we do need reasonable adjustments and we do need things to help us to thrive, there are so many skills that come with living with a chronic illness, which I actually think are a huge asset in the workplace. And I think it's really important to remember that. And I wish I'd had somebody to say this to me back then. So especially with a condition like ME, you quickly learn the importance of time management and being able to prioritise, thinking about what needs to take priority during your day, what you need to do in order to carry on keeping on. Another one is thinking creatively about getting around barriers. So I found that even when we face all these barriers in everyday life, like we do have to learn what's personally going to work for us as individuals, and also recognise that what works for one individual might not necessarily work for another. And then I think the big one that often goes unrecognised is that people with ME have so much self-motivation. Like, we only have a limited amount of energy per day, and I think we are more aware than most people that because we have that limited amount of energy, we want to use it in the best possible way. And yes, that has implications in day-to-day life, but especially in the workplace, I actually think that's a really valuable asset. Like, the people I know with ME are some of the most motivated and driven people I know. So I think it's all about just doing what you can, and then what we're going to do here at Astrid is hopefully open up these opportunities to a lot more people as well.
Well, on that, Pippa, Julie has a question, and she says, are there any tips for explaining to managers and colleagues the unpredictable and fluctuating nature of your energy levels? That's a very specific point that people may fail to understand unless they've dealt with the condition or someone in their immediate ecosystem has explained it to them. So how do you have that conversation?
Yeah, that's a really good point, especially with the fact that ME is so often invisible as well. It can be so difficult to communicate these things. And again, that's something I have experience of. I think ultimately what we do need is more training on diversity and inclusion that actually includes ME and similar chronic illnesses. But at an individual level, I think it's a case of just being honest. And I know that can feel really difficult, but just being honest about how one day might not necessarily look the same as another day. And it's all about just taking it a bit at a time, taking it as it comes. If you're looking for more kind of practical advice or more concrete advice, there is the spoon theory, which I know a lot of you will probably be aware of, the spoon theory of chronic illness. And another really great resource that I've benefited from is something called Stickman Communications. And they are basically little illustrations that can basically illustrate some of the more invisible symptoms you might be experiencing. So Stickman Communications, go and have a look on their website. They're very affordable and they can be really good to help explain these more difficult concepts to people who might not have first-hand experience of it.
Thank you, Pippa. My final question, I'll circle around to everyone. If you could tell me in brief, so what are some of your practical hints and tips for our members of our community, our attendees who might want to take steps towards work or volunteering? Why don't I start with Pippa?
Yep, my best advice to anybody working in any capacity is just to remember that you don't have to burn yourself out to feel like you're doing a good job. Like, it's completely okay to have some energy left in the tank at the end of the day. Like, even if you do happen to have a spare bit of time and a spare bit of energy, please don't feel compelled like you have to fill it. And again, I know it's easier said than done because I'm very guilty of this, but just leave some energy in the tank. Think about your week as a whole with your pacing rather than the individual day. And just look after yourself. Please look after yourself.
Thank you, Pippa. Amanda?
So one of my big tips would be is pacing. Pacing is I feel is a little bit underestimated sometimes, and it's because this illness affects everyone so differently, and how we react to activities varies so much from day to day, from hour to hour. So trying to learn what works for you and what doesn't work for you is key. And it's been key for me helping to manage, improve my day to day for sure. And I definitely don't have it down to perfect art at all. But it's good to know that I have it as a tool to help when things do go a bit awry and life happens and you can't stick to things the way that you would hope. And there are a lot of courses online that you can do. Some of them are free and some of them are for a little bit of a cost, but they can help not only build your confidence, but help you with pacing, because you can figure out how much time you can be on a computer, if it's better for you to listen rather than actually watch a video and things like that. And there's local councils are doing a lot more courses online now due to the current circumstances. I've just finished an online course, a wellbeing course with my local council, which was really good. And I would just say, just give it a go. Like, if you feel like you have even just an hour or two to give to a charity, or if you've got a friend who's got a company where you could help out for an hour or two, someone will be grateful for that time you can give them, and it will help to build your confidence and build your skills a little bit, and it will just give you something to build on as well. So yeah, they're my tips.
Thank you for sharing that, Amanda. Trish, some of your takeaway, your insights?
My insights, I'm probably not the best person to talk to about pacing. I'm still learning that skill myself. It takes a long time. I think I'm relatively new to the party of Emmy, so it's still quite learning them. I just think to be honest and be transparent and let people know that you are feeling the way you are feeling, but every now and again I think it's a really wise thing to do is to sit down and think about the things that you can do rather than the things that you can't do, and I've done this with many candidates that have come through, and the reaction is so good in the follow-up call that I make to them, that they're just like, yeah, that really made a difference, and it does, it lifts your spirits up. So rather than seeing the negative side, and I know that it is really tricky to do that when you feel the way you do when you have ME, but to have a look at the positive sides, and then you'll see, I think, any passions and skills that you've got that might be transferable into getting into other work, because you can do both. You can have a passion and you can use that passion in a work capacity. It's not just about qualifications and things. It can be done. So think about all the things that you can do, would be my big tip.
Thank you, Trish. This is everything we had for you for today. Get in touch with us by going to our website, astrid.org. When there, click on Join Our Community at the top of the homepage. Tell us about your journey so far and what we can do to support you, or if you feel ready, perhaps volunteer with Astrid and help others who may benefit from your experience and insights. If we didn't get around to answering your questions, and there are still a few questions outstanding, we will do so via our website, so make sure to join our community. We will also include a recording of the webinar and its key insights and answers to your questions with a newsletter going out to all of you over the coming days. Thank you, all panelists, Pippa, Amanda, Trish, and attendees for joining us. And until next time, stay safe.